Vitamin B1, thiamine. Your brain is a power plant that runs on sugar, and thiamine is the switch. No switch, no power. You can have plenty of glucose available, but without B1, your brain can't turn it into usable energy fast enough to think clearly. Thiamine helps neurons convert glucose into fuel on demand. Not slowly, instantly. Your brain burns energy like a phone with too many apps open. Thinking, focusing, regulating emotion, remembering names. Every task costs power. B1 keeps the light steady when demand spikes. It also keeps nerve signals clean. Thiamine supports the insulation around neurons so messages don't leak, stall, or arrive distorted. When levels drop, signals misfire. That shows up as brain fog, irritability, and mental fatigue that caffeine can't fix. You're awake, but underpowered. Psychologically, low B1 lowers your tolerance for friction. Small problems feel heavier. Decisions feel exhausting. Motivation dips, not because you don't care, but because thinking itself feels expensive. Severe deficiency is obvious. Confusion, memory loss, emotional instability. A mild deficiency is quieter. It looks like stress or burnout. High-carb diets burn through thiamine faster, and stress raises the demand, but thiamine doesn't store well. Miss it for a few days, and performance slips quietly. Vitamin B6, pyridoxine. If your brain were a factory, vitamin B6 would be middle management, not glamorous. Absolutely essential. It makes sure raw materials turn into usable products instead of piling up and causing chaos. B6 helps your brain manufacture neurotransmitters: serotonin, dopamine, GABA, norepinephrine. These chemicals decide whether you feel calm, motivated, focused, or stretched thin. Without enough B6, the assembly line slows. Mood regulation gets sloppy, and emotional reactions get louder. This vitamin also keeps brain signals balanced. It prevents excitatory messages from running unchecked. When B6 runs low, your nervous system leans toward overstimulated. You feel wired but tired, anxious without a clear trigger, restless even when nothing is happening. Cognitively, B6 supports memory formation and learning speed. It helps neurons communicate under pressure. When stress rises, deadlines, conflict, constant decision-making, B6 gets burned faster. That's when minor stressors start feeling personal. The psychological pattern is subtle. Low B6 doesn't make you depressed. It makes you reactive, short-tempered, and easily overwhelmed by noise, people, or small setbacks. Protein-heavy diets increase demand. Certain medications drain it quietly. Absorption drops with age. None of this announces itself. You don't crash, you fray. And once neurotransmitter balance slips, the brain looks for stability elsewhere, which is where the next vitamin steps in, handling repair, protection, and long-term mental resilience. Vitamin B9, folate. Think of vitamin B9 as your brain's maintenance crew. Not emergency responders, quiet workers preventing small issues from turning into big ones. Folate is essential for making and repairing DNA in brain cells. Every time a neuron fires, adapts, or forms a new connection, it relies on clean genetic instructions. B9 keeps those instructions readable. Without it, errors build up. Not enough to cause sudden failure, enough to slow everything down. B9 also regulates homocysteine, a metabolic byproduct that becomes harmful when it accumulates. High-level stress neurons and blood vessel, linked to memory decline and weaker focus. Folate keeps that compound in check, like taking trash out before it starts to smell. Psychologically, low folate feels like mental dullness. Motivation drops, processing speed slows. You're not sad, you're flat. Folate also supports serotonin and dopamine production. When levels dip, mood regulation weakens at the foundation. No dramatic swings, just less mental sharpness and emotional color. Demand rises with stress and recovery. Diet gaps are common. When maintenance slips, performance follows quietly. Vitamin B12, cobalamin. Vitamin B12 is the insulation on your brain's wiring. Signals still travel without it, but they leak, slow down, and misfire under pressure. B12 builds and maintains the myelin sheath, the protective coating around nerve fibers. This coating lets signals move fast and clean. When B12 is adequate, thoughts feel crisp. Reactions are sharp. When it's low, messages drag. You know what you want to say, but it takes longer to get there. B12 also supports red blood cell production, which controls oxygen delivery to the brain. Less B12 means less oxygen. That shows up as mental fatigue that feels out of proportion to effort. You're tired from thinking, not doing. Psychologically, deficiency is subtle. Memory slips, word recall stutters. Confidence drops because your brain feels unreliable. Many people assume it's stress or aging. It's often neither. Absorption is the trap. B12 needs stomach acid and a specific transport protein. Age, gut issues, medications, and plant-based diets interfere. You can eat enough and still absorb too little, and deficiency takes time, months, sometimes years. By the time it's noticed, performance has already been quietly reduced. Vitamin C, ascorbic acid. Vitamin C is your brain's cleanup crew. It doesn't generate ideas. It keeps mental debris from piling up and slowing everything down. Your brain uses more oxygen than any other organ. Oxygen is helpful, but messy. It produces free radicals as exhaust. Vitamin C neutralizes them before they start damaging neurons. When levels drop, brain cells age faster than they should. Vitamin C is concentrated inside neurons, not just circulating for general health. It protects synapses, the tiny gaps where brain cells exchange information. When those spaces take oxidative stress, signals weaken, focus slips, reaction time slows, and clarity fades at the edges. It also supports norepinephrine production. That's the chemical that keeps you alert and mentally present, not hyped, awake. When vitamin C runs low, energy drops in a flat way. You're conscious but disengaged. Psychologically, deficiency feels quiet, dullness, lower stress tolerance. Emotional recovery takes longer, small problems longer. Here's the catch. You can't make vitamin C, stress, illness, and poor sleep burn through it quickly. Miss it consistently and protection fades, leaving the brain more exposed over time. Vitamin D, cholecalciferol. Vitamin D acts less like a vitamin and more like a volume dial. It sets how strongly your brain reacts to the world. Receptors for vitamin D sit in brain regions tied to mood, motivation, and executive control. When levels are adequate, signaling stays balanced, not flat, not overreactive, calibrated. When levels drop, that calibration slips. Vitamin D also regulates inflammation in the brain. Low-grade inflammation doesn't hurt. It slows thinking, creates fog, adds emotional weight that feels personal, even when nothing is technically wrong. That's why low D often looks like burnout or mild depression. It influences serotonin indirectly by keeping the production machinery working properly. When vitamin D is low, mood stability weakens. Motivation fades first. Pleasure follows. Cognitively, vitamin D supports attention and processing speed. Deficiency is linked to slower reaction time and weaker working memory. You still function, just slightly behind yourself. The modern problem is sunlight. Indoor life, sunscreen, latitude, and winter reduce synthesis. Food sources are limited, and because vitamin D works slowly, the effects feel psychological long before they feel nutritional. Vitamin E, tocopherols. Think of vitamin E like shock absorbers on a car. You don't notice them on smooth roads, but you feel every bump once they're gone. Your brain is mostly fat. Cell membranes, myelin, synapses. Vitamin E protects these fats from oxidation. Without it, brain structure doesn't fail suddenly. It stiffens over time. Gradual wear you only notice in hindsight. Vitamin E sits inside cell membranes and blocks free radicals from punching holes through them. When membranes weaken, neurons become fragile. Signals lose precision. Timing gets sloppy. Information still moves, just not as cleanly. Cognitively, low vitamin E shows up as slower processing and weaker memory retention. You can still learn, but it doesn't stick. Recall feels effortful, and mental endurance drops before ability does. Psychologically, this feels like mental aging, not confusion, just less sharpness, slower bounce back after long days or emotional stress. Vitamin E also protects brain blood vessels, supporting steady oxygen and nutrient delivery. Deficiency is rare, but suboptimal intake is common. And when protection fades, communication problems surface more easily. Vitamin K2. Think of vitamin K2 like traffic control for nutrients. Without it, everything shows up, but nothing moves where it should. K2 directs calcium to the right places and keeps it out of the wrong ones. That matters because calcium isn't just for bones. In the brain, it's a signaling molecule. Neurons use calcium pulses to fire, reset, and communicate. Too much in the wrong spot creates noise. Too little causes delay. Vitamin K2 activates proteins that protect brain cells from calcification and oxidative stress. When those proteins aren't switched on, neurons stiffen. Signals still fire, but flexibility drops. Adaptation slows. Learning feels heavier than it should. K2 also supports sphingolipids, key fats in myelin and cell membranes. In simple terms, it keeps brain wiring flexible instead of brittle, especially under stress and aging. Psychologically, low K2 feels like reduced mental agility, slower adjustments, less cognitive bounce. You can still think, but switching gears takes effort. Modern diets often miss K2. It's found in fermented foods and certain animal products. K1 doesn't replace it. When nutrient traffic misroutes, efficiency drops quietly and stacks over time. Choline. Think of choline like the postal system for your thoughts. You can write the message perfectly, but if delivery fails, nothing lands. Choline is the backbone of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that controls memory, attention, learning speed, and coordination. When acetylcholine fires cleanly, thoughts feel deliberate. Focus locks in. Recall feels easy. When it's low, everything turns slippery. Choline also builds phospholipids, the fats that form brain cell membranes. These membranes decide how signals enter, exit, and respond. Weak structure means weak communication. Messages arrive late or distorted. Cognitively, low choline shows up fast. Word recall lags. Mental stamina drops. You reread the same sentence, not from distraction, but because it didn't stick. Psychologically, this creates a specific frustration. You feel capable, but blocked, like your brain is buffering. Effort rises, output doesn't. Choline demand climbs with learning, stress, and multitasking. Many diets fall short, and your brain can't store much of it. Miss choline regularly and clarity fades quietly, just like everything else on this list. Your brain doesn't run on willpower, it runs on materials. Skip the basics, and everything upstairs starts cutting corners. If this made your mental fog feel a little more explainable, hit like and subscribe. Next up, we're breaking down how every mineral deficiency secretly affects you. The quiet signals your body sends long before things actually break.